Great. So I think everyone's here. We can get started. First off, thank you all so much for being here. We're really thrilled, the whole DFA team, to celebrate this team's accomplishments this summer, have them share with all of us, like all of the incredible work they've been doing, and also hear from you leaders of the YMCA in terms of how this work will be impactful at your org and how mental health is going to be incorporated in the YMCA goals. So we're super excited to get started. Junhee's going to share the presentation, but yeah, welcome to the final Expo for this summer's Summer Design Institute. We're really excited to see everybody. We'll be walking through a brief agenda just to see what's on the agenda for today. So we'll be starting with a YMCA keynote, learning a bit more about the ways that this work can be impactful at the YMCA, and then move into the team's presentation. So a share out for about 10 minutes in terms of all of the incredible work they've been doing. We saw it yesterday. It's really, really awesome and impactful work. And we're so excited to share with you all. And then the design coaches, myself included, will be doing a brief share out in terms of what we have learned this summer and some key learning moments from working with these incredible change makers. And then finally, we'll have a closing from one of our partners at the Bank of America, followed by a group photo on Zoom so we can capture this expo for future DFA sessions. So yeah, welcome again, and thank you so much everyone for being here. Super excited to get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Sparkle. I'm one of the design coaches from the Summers Institute. I'm excited to see all of your faces on the call and looking forward to the presentation today. Before we hop into the agenda, here are just a couple Zoom norms. I see a couple people already edited their names, but going ahead to first cut on your video if possible, and then also like changing your name convention. It can be your first name. You can also add pronouns if you like, and just like what organization you're here representing. Unless we're speaking, we're gonna try to all keep our mics off just to be respectful of the speakers. And throughout the call, feel free to drop any questions, comments, shout outs in the chat, especially as the team's presenting their ideas. You can also use any of the reactions with hand raising, clapping and things like that. And Ross also shared earlier just some of the Zoom backgrounds that we all have. There are a couple of different options. So feel free to download those and join us in our festive backgrounds. And the meeting is being recorded. So if you would like to cut off your camera, you definitely can do that, but we'll go ahead and get started. So to start off today's event, we first want to welcome our keynote speaker, Scott. He's been a YMCA leader for over 10 years in marketing, communications, other programming, and operations. Right now, he serves as chief of staff at Florida State Alliance of YMCAs. So he's been supporting a lot of their project management, public policy, and other advocacy programs. We want to thank you for coming out today, Scott. We're excited to have you here today, and we'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Sparkle. That was amazing, and thank you all for the opportunity to come, and for Heidi for asking. This makes my heart warm, just to give a little bit of context, because I wish when I was a teen in some of our Y programs that I had an avenue to test and iterate and have the freedom to fail, right? Like you all have in Design for America, but also the freedom to really believe in the culture and lean into innovation and creativity. And Heidi knows from working with me, I know Ross, has heard me talk a little bit, Allison and Kate Gross, like, we look at innovation and it's the future. And so it makes my heart happy when we can take innovation and pair it with mental health. And so let me talk a little bit about what the Y is doing around mental health, because this is probably one of the newer areas that we've spent a lot of time and energy, but it's one of the things that I really believe that the Y is uniquely positioned to look at mental health. We all have mental health. We all know it's how we think, how we act, and how we feel. So when we look at mental health and we look at the Y's position, we have the Y is the center of community, is what we like to say. And so at the center of community, we have community members. And so if we really understand our community members and implement trauma-informed practices paired with things like COVID, where we know that the pandemic has demolished some of our economic or our economy. It's looked at a lot of changes and ambiguity in people's life, which sometimes creates trauma and creates that uncertainty feeling and not having that foundation. But as the Y, we can leverage both our members, our staff, but also the thing that I think the Y has done in the past is partnerships, right? Bring people together that normally wouldn't be in a room together and talk about mental health, talk about mental well-being, and talk about all the populations that are affected by trauma, and how do we overcome that together. And everyone has a piece to play, right? We've got the medical community that has a piece to play. We've got systems and policy and processes that have a piece to play. We have community-based organizations, and then we just have individual humans caring for one another. And so when we look at some of the things that went into how we're looking at the next, what we're calling the mental health framework, and some of the innovation that we're looking at mental health being, is we're looking at effective coping and mechanisms, whether that's with stress, whether that's building resiliency, but it's looking at those communities that need it most and pairing them. Some of the other things we know that the negative impact of toxic stress, for instance, on the minds of and bodies of youth can be interrupted simply by having a safe space, a stable space, a nurturing environment, and building some of the social emotional skills, some of those things outside of the focus of academics that can play. And this actually comes really well because I'm currently sitting in Orlando at a hotel, and we are at a after school network public policy forum. And almost every speaker today has mentioned social emotional learning, trauma informed care, and youth mental health. And so when you look at it, if most of our partners in the after school space are talking about that, it's clearly something that we need to focus on. The last thing I'll look at is the where we are currently in the world. Our world's very divided right now, which automatically is going to create trauma. And so when we're looking at things as a center of community, we must answer that call. We must come up with solutions that are going to look at systemic racism, that are going to look at access and ability, that are going to look at disabilities and disability advocacy. So when we look at that, we know that also most people, when they look at mental health, there's that negative connotation behind it. So we look at a lot of people go without the services. I like to say it's just like suck it up and deal with it is what we hear a lot of it. And we've got to break that stigma and really try to break down those barriers. And so I am excited. I'm only gonna be able to spend about 10-15 minutes, but I'm excited to hear what you all have in mind, because to me, most people that work with me hear what I have to say about design, and design is all about working with the people closest to the problem to solve the problem. And you all are the closest or closer than say me, than say some of the adults in the world. So I just want to go ahead and say thank you for all of the work and the time and the talent and the treasure that you put into this. And I can't wait to hear what you all have to say. And I'm just honored to see so many amazing servant leaders. So I'm also happy to answer any questions, Ross, or Heidi, or anyone. Kate, let me know how you want me to show up, but I'm here to support and I'm here to listen.
Thank you so much, Scott, for kicking us off today and for this start to the presentation. We're excited to now pass it along to the team to show us the work that they have done so far. And so for this, the team will present, and then after the team presents, we ask people in the audience to put your name in the virtual in the chat so we can create a virtual line to give feedback around the team and celebrate the work at the end. But excited to pass it off, and let's get started.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can't see it. All right. Can everyone see the presentation? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We're really excited to share what we've done this entire summer and our journey. So yeah, we'll get started right away. So before we kind of go deep into our project, we wanted to introduce ourselves. So we are the Bank of America student leaders working with the YMCA of the Triangle, and I'll hand it off to Laura.
Yes, thank you, Ria. Yeah, so my name is Laura Osborne, and I am a rising freshman at Harvard University.
And my name is Jordan Ward, and I'm a rising freshman at New York University.
My name is Ria Cabra, and I'm going to be attending Duke University in the fall.
Hi, my name is Shakute Abibi, and I will be attending Columbia University in the fall.
So that's our team. And this is kind of the agenda for today. Feel free to take a look at it, and then we'll be on our way. All right. So this has kind of been our journey for the past 8 weeks. We started by choosing a project space, and we chose mental health for a lot of the reasons that Mr. Scott just mentioned. Thank you so much for that intro. And we kind of started with that, figured out what we really wanted to do. We listened, talked to a lot of different people, interviewed people at the Y, interviewed people at Bank of America, interviewed ourselves and our peers, because as Scott mentioned, mental health is something that affects everyone. So we got a lot of data, we got a lot of insight, and then we figured out what exactly we wanted to do. So we figured out which direction we wanted to choose our project, built our prototype, received more feedback, talked to more people, and we are here today presenting our final project to you. So we'll dive into the details of that in just a moment. So we chose mental health, specifically at the YMCA of the Triangle, because we really wanted to make a broader impact. Mental health is an issue that really encapsulates a lot of different things, whether that's DEI, or regardless of any issue, it impacts every single person. So we wanted to really make sure that we got something that could make such an impact, especially for people our age. So our audience is the Y staff, specifically teenagers, such as camp counselors or lifeguards. They're just people who could really receive the support. So we decided to develop a mental health team leadership training, and we'll dive deep into what exactly that entails and what that looks like with our fun participants that you'll meet in just a moment. But kind of setting the guidelines, we used our how can we statement, which is really helping us focus our goal and hone down on what we want to accomplish. So our how can we statement is, how can we empower youth counselors to utilize mental health resources to support the social and emotional well-being of youth at the YMCA. We then developed design criteria. These are guidelines that we really want our product to embody and make sure that we address these needs. For example, we want to make sure that the training is really comprehensive and it's accessible to all and addresses everyone's needs, regardless of how much knowledge they have of mental health, where they're coming from, their demographics, etc. So now that you know a little more about what our foundation is, we want you to meet our two favorite people in the world, Bob, who is a team staff at the Y. He specifically is a counselor at Camp Canada, and Kate, who is our youth director for today. She is going to be the facilitator. You might also see her on this Zoom. Kate is based off of a real person. So I don't know if you noticed her, but awesome. We're excited to talk a little more about what's going to happen with them. So basically, Kate is our facilitator. She sends an email about this awesome mental health training that's about to happen soon. And Bob receives this email in his inbox. He clicks the email, and this is what he sees. And I'll hand it off to Sir Kite.
So as Bob opens the email, he sees he has been sent materials from the YMCA regarding youth leadership mental health training. As part of the pre-training, Bob takes a survey to gauge his knowledge surrounding mental health. As Bob takes the survey, he finds himself intrigued. Mental health is not a concept he has put much thought to, let alone thought about or talked about in his workplace. He's really curious to see how this will play into his role as a YMCA Camp Canada counselor. Bob is then provided with a definition of mental health. Having little prior knowledge on the subject, he's surprised to see how comprehensive the definition really is. He's beginning to get a grasp on just how deeply mental health impacts human behavior and emotion. Bob is then presented with data from survey responses taken from his fellow coworkers at the YMCA, as well as employees from Bank of America. He is surprised at the state of mental health and the statistics he sees. He never knew that so many people faced individual struggles or concerns with mental health and also were less comfortable talking about it or asking for help versus when it comes to their physical health. He's especially surprised because these are people he interacts with on a regular basis, but has never had the chance to have such conversations with them. As the pre-meeting information wraps up, Bob is left with questions to prepare for. Bob feels grateful to be part of the training. He realizes that he has never really been given a space to discuss mental health so openly and is now beginning to realize how big of an issue lack of awareness and stigma can be. As a Camp Kanata counselor, he begins to wonder, how can he support not only himself but others he takes care of within his role on their mental health journey?
Now that Bob had the opportunity to look through different material beforehand, the day of the training has finally come. Bob walks into the room, is greeted by Kate, and this is what he sees.
Bob is so excited to begin this journey. And to start off, they begin with an activity called How Are You?, where he learns the importance of being genuine and intentional when asking others how they are. Next, they move on to the big picture activity, where they choose out of a myriad of images which one defines mental health from their own opinions and experiences. After they conclude these activities, they move on to discussions where they were able to choose from two of the three possible discussion topics: the intersection of DEI and mental health, encouraging discussion around mental health, and the different aspects of mental health. Him and his peers choose to discuss the intersection of DEI and mental health, as well as encouraging discussion around mental health. Bob now knows through these discussions that not everyone has access to mental health care, and this has inspired him to want to support organizations that provide accessible therapy for those in need. He also learned the importance of sharing personal stories of one's struggles with mental health in order to encourage conversation. Through these discussions, Bob feels confident in his newfound knowledge and hopes to take it with him to better impact his community and especially the youth that he watches at Camp Kanata.
After a successful day of training, Bob receives an additional email, an additional background on the next steps that he can take as he learns from this training.
So post-training for the team staff at the Y includes the resource list, 3 things letter, the How Are You activity, and completing the post survey. After Bob completes his training, he now understands the importance of using the skills he learned in everyday life, not to only be there for others, but to be there for himself. With a compiled list of resources, Bob feels that he's prepared to deal with any occurrences such as anxiety, depression, paranoia, and many others. In the training, the team staff wrote letters to themselves, listing things they would like to do so that their mental health and well-being could improve. Bob wrote in his 3 things letter that the things he wants to do more in order to improve his mental well-being over the next 3 months are working out more, drinking more water, socializing more with his friends. And since Bob is ambitious, he also included going to bed earlier, going for a jog every morning, and simply asking for help when he needs it. He is confident that he will be successful in honing down on all of these challenges and is excited for his journey for a healthy well-being. During the training, Bob was not entirely self-confident that he would be able to be genuine with the How Are You activity, because he's so used to asking people how they are, but not truly meaning it or expecting them to answer truly. But now, with what Bob learned in the training, he feels as though he can walk up to anyone and ask how they are while actively listening and being there for them. Bob is the utmost content with his training and is excited for more to come.
And now that you learned about how Bob's feeling is with this training, let's go back to Kate and see how she's doing.
So post-training for the facilitator includes sending and receiving survey results. The training is officially done. Kate hopes that all her hard work paid off. She opens up the post-survey results on her laptop. She's a tad hesitant because she put her all into the training. But to no one's surprise, Kate is seen smiling ear to ear all day when she is completing her shift at the Y. When asked if you feel comfortable enough to ask for help when it comes to mental health, around 43% of the teens answered an answer other than yes in the pre-survey. This time on the post-survey, a whopping 90% of the teens answered yes, that they feel comfortable asking for help. Though a small step seems minuscule, it is the small steps like Kate that will lead to a true change.
And with this training, Kate and Bob feel as if they have defined mental health, had meaningful conversations about mental health, and understood the resources available for mental health if they need the support. These are the objectives of the training, and that's what they accomplished. So at this time, the training has been concluded, as has our presentation. So I will stop my share. Thank you so much for listening, and we are happy to answer any questions, take any comments or feedback, or share a screen with a specific slide if you would like. Thank you all so much.
Great work, team. A virtual round of applause, real round of applause. Congratulations for this wonderful idea and presentation. I'd now like to invite the guests on the call to put their name in the chat to line up and give your comments to the team. Scott, I know you have to hop off, so if you would like to say a few words first, I invite you to do so, if you're able.
Sure, this is actually impeccable timing. I am just dumbfounded by all the work that you all put in here. It's something so simplistic that can be worked into what our Ys are doing, but so impactful. I was actually just chatting with Allie and Heidi, being like, how do we scale this? This is something that is super doable, like anyone can implement. And I just think you all really thought through the process, and so kudos.
Thanks, Scott. Kate?
Yeah, I would echo what Scott has to say. This is something that can make a huge change, and it's a simple behavior change, and it is possible to do and to replicate in many Ys, not only within the YMCA of the Triangle, but as Scott lifted up, beyond. And so sometimes I think, I will speak for myself, I think large, big picture, these major shifts that need to happen in a problem space that's been identified. And I think this group really lifted up how small, simple changes and addressing them with intentionality can provide some really major shifts in problem spaces that we've been overthinking at times as adults. And so I just want to take my hats off to this group. You know, their research, their follow through, really understanding. In 8 weeks, they were able to look at the culture of the YMCA, which is very complex. So they figured out how to navigate in that space. They identified a problem area and really found a way to provide our staff and our young leaders training that's so important. So just thank you, and thank you DFA for walking them through. I think I learned a lot as a Y leader, and this process makes change, powerful change in problem spaces. So thank you.
Yes, congratulations, team. I also wanted to share some comments again. I invite everyone else to put your name in the chat if you have anything you'd like to share. You're pros. You are designers. You have completely knocked all of our socks off here, being able to succinctly communicate your idea in such a neat package that communicate, like, shows you know what you're talking about, and you've done your homework. You've done the work to create this model that we're all excited about figuring out how to replicate and scale. So congratulations. I loved your ability, like your presentation skills you're going to do great in school and everything you work on and present in the future. Just your transitions, your moments, your narration. Thank you so much for really taking this seriously and for just going above and beyond, and you should be very proud of yourselves in that relationship. And I think Alden, you were next, so I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, mirroring sort of everyone's comments, like congrats y'all, both to the team and the design coaches and Jane, like just a really, really exciting moment to see everything that we've done over the last 8 weeks, which has felt equally as long as it has very short and quick. But I would love to hear from the Yoda team. You all are in this demographic of people that you were working with and thinking about. And I would love to hear from the experience, like what most surprised you, and how you are sort of leaving this experience thinking about your own mental health or mental health in generally differently.
I think for me, like the how are you activity really resonated with me. I know, like, especially I feel like, that's just a commonality that we do is like, oh, I'm good. Like, hey, how are you? And like, you're like, oh, I'm good, or oh, I'm fine. Like, oh, like, whatever, like you say, but like, you're just so used to it that one, you kind of space out after you ask it. You're not really like listening or paying much attention because it's just habitual. Like it's not intentional. It's just out of habit. So you're not really like caring to hear what comes after that. It's just like, oh, hey, I'm good. How are you? It's just what we're so used to. And so I think just being intentional and being honest, and like when you ask how someone's like doing, like actually asking like how they are, and responding like truthfully. You don't have to like unload on them, but of course, like, oh, like if you're having a rough day, like, oh, I'm having a rough day, I'm not just fine, I'm not just good. Like I feel like just those small steps of intentionality and being genuine are so big, especially when, like I mentioned, it's a habit that we're all so used to. And so that's been my biggest takeaway is like when I answer, like being more genuine and intentional on how I answer, not just saying I'm good or I'm fine, like being like, oh, I had a rough day, but it's getting better, or oh, I'm like doing pretty good, a little bit tired, just being more honest, but then also asking and being genuine and intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to second what Laura said. I think we all were talking about the how are you activity in detail and how that's so interesting. Like you don't even realize these like small things that you do every day. But do you really mean it? Is it more of a formality, or are you stopping to listen? Are you stopping and seeking to understand? So I agree with that. And I think something that was really surprising for me, which I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but the difference between being able to ask for help when it comes to physical health versus mental health, and really normalizing why it's okay if your mental health isn't that great. Like you don't just put a Band-Aid on it and call it a day. It's much more deeper than that and more significant. So that's something that I took away from this as well.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking exactly what Ria said. I think what really stuck out to me was like how in society we treat physical health with like a sense of urgency in a way that we wouldn't treat mental health. So I think not only just like in the training and like the culture of the YMCA helping to improve that in our own personal lives, giving ourselves like spaces to heal, mental health days and things like that, and treating like the mental ailments the same way we would treat a physical ailment.
So for me, I think what most surprised me is the different aspects of life, which is really all that affect your mental health, which is really why I love the big picture slide deck, which is the activity they will be doing in the training, whereas basically they're giving a huge photo, and they're prompted to pick 1 to 2 photos that help them with their mental health or that relates to them. And I think that just really emphasizes how mental health is in every aspect of life. And as you can see, it's up here very small. I also love the 3 things letter because it also emphasizes how little small things like drinking water every day or working out or going to bed earlier can improve your mental well-being so much more. So that was very surprising to me and very insightful. So yeah.
Love it. Thanks all so much for sharing that. That was really great.
Mm-hmm. No, everyone take care of yourself to flourish, and excited we can spread that out and work and these into all the touch points that we have. Heidi, you're next.
Sure, thank you. And I'm just going to reiterate, amazing, amazing, amazing. It's great to spend this time with you and hear about the work that you've been doing this summer. You do have an amazing leader in Kate, so I want to give her a shout out as well. Just really inspired by the work that you're doing, and just so you know, in a bunch of private chats going on the side, we've been figuring out how we might use this, how we might inspire others through this, what's next, how do we take this amazing summer experience and make it something for more to have this opportunity. And throughout the year. And so we'll be having some conversations as we move forward in that. But I would love just to hear from a couple of you or all of you, however that works. Tell me about the experience itself. Tell me about doing some of this design work and maybe your biggest learning coming out of that. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I can start. And I know that we were talking to Kate earlier. I think we were also going to share this in just a few moments, but I can kind of start off now. I think for me, not limiting ourselves in one scope or one direction was like a big part, because I remember with the ideation process, it was like you just keep going. Like it doesn't matter how feasible the idea is, doesn't matter how it's going to work out. Not like kind of narrowing your mindset, and that was really important for me, especially as we did research as well, because I feel like, at least coming in, I feel like I assumed that I had this perception of like, oh yeah, like I know what this person is going to say when they answer this question. Like I know like what the insight is supposed to be or what it's going to be like, but really listening and then like waiting and understanding how there's like so many different like layers to all the different answers and different questions that we ask, even within one broad topic. So those were like the main things for me, and I can hand it off to one of the other student leaders.
So I'm like trying to come up with an answer, like thinking, I promise I'm not like clueless. I'm just genuinely like in thought. And I'd have to say, I'm honestly just gonna kind of talk as I think. So this might sound like, totally random, but we'll spitball it. We'll see what happens. But like I think like one of my biggest like experiences, like takeaways from the summer is kind of one like working with like I remember we talked about this like with Molly this morning, is like working with like 3 strangers that like we never really even got to meet. Like we just kind of like were like pushed into like a Zoom room and like, hey, like you're the student leaders, like get this project done, like you have 8 weeks. And it's like we never even got to meet until like Wednesday at the Southeast like YMCA. And so it was just like, we all just kind of like adapted to like the virtual setting, like getting to know each other, but also get to know our strengths and weaknesses, which is a lot harder to learn over Zoom. And so it was definitely like really interesting, like working with them at first. Like at first I was like, oh my goodness, like how is this gonna work? Like I don't know who they are. Like I knew Jordan like very like who he was, like just through this teen board we were on, but like Ria and Circuiti, like I had no idea like what to expect. And so I have to say that was like the biggest like learning thing, was just like one, getting close with them over Zoom and like finding out like all of our like working, kind of our strengths and our weaknesses and how to incorporate that and make sure that our strengths are all like uplifted, and that where one person's like weakness like comes in play, like another person's strength can pick them up. And so I think that was like the biggest like challenge and like aspect, but it also taught me that, you can really learn a bunch about people. Like I think we became like super close and super like I think we're all like pretty good friends now, just through these like just being virtual these like last couple of weeks. And I know that I'm gonna miss seeing them every day, but I think that was probably one of like the best experiences, is like learning how to adapt in whatever environment you're in, and like no matter where you are, just being able to pick it up and like be a mover and a shaker no matter what. And so I think that we all demonstrated that through this time.
I think like the big learning thing for me and takeaway was just the aspects of intersectionality, not only within mental health, but also like community. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Yo, but he works with DEI at the YMCA, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. And just working with him a lot, we learned a lot about how like factors such as race, socioeconomic, and even geography can really impact your life as well as your mental health. So I think understanding how so many different factors can come into play for like mental health and things like that, I think that was really eye-opening to me and will definitely help me like along my journey.
So for me, mainly, I really enjoyed the crits. So we had crits prior to this final presentation, and I really enjoyed the feedback that was given. Like our youth leaders will ask, well, not our youth leaders, but our DFA leaders will ask a question that we, or me, I'm not going to generalize, but me, that I would have no idea to. And just going back to the drawing board, and those questions really allowed us just to kind of hone down and make our presentation the best that we possibly can. Also, I really enjoyed the interviews that we did for our research. We interviewed with Nami, Alicia, Roxanne, Sarah Johnson. You guys all knew them, and they just provided some insightful information that we really took back to our project. So I guess I really enjoyed the research phase and the ideation. And also I really enjoyed the ideation phase from DFA guys, because we did our ideation phase after our research. And like that kind of seems like flipped, but it actually really helped a lot in just coming up with ideas that were just, I guess, sustainable and relevant to our actual topic. So I really enjoyed that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm just, yes to everything that you all are sharing. And we're so excited to continue now with the next portion of this presentation, which is going to continue in a different wavelength. And we'll invite the design coaches who the team has been working with all summer to tell us a little bit more about what they've learned and gathered from this experience. So design coaches, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Ross. And thank you again, team, for sharing out. That was really incredible. And I think, as Ross mentioned in the chat, your insights and learnings from the summer tie in really well to what we as your design coaches also learned. So really excited to go over some of our learnings and highlights from the summer. Just to start, we have a little overview of what the summer looked like for those that weren't, on the front lines of like participating in these activities. Basically, we would start each week with a presentation on the design step that we were immersed in for that week, followed by activities in Mural, which is like a collaborative design platform. Kind of allows a team to work on a collaborative whiteboard, despite being in different virtual spaces. So for a quick example of what that looked like on a week-to-week basis, you can see on the left an example slide from one of our presentations. This one was for Immerse Week, which is basically the research stage of the design process, which this team was really, really incredible at doing, and also continued throughout the entire summer, which really led to, I think, very thoughtful and intentional prototypes that you saw today. And then following that, we had weekly homework in Mural. So you can see this activity is called Planning and Conducting User Research, and it was helping the team work through how to approach users and learn more about the ways they experience mental health, and develop questions that were targeted and specifically address different aspects of mental health based on their research.
Thanks, Kate. Following our weekly presentations and going through the design steps, we had a structured 30 to an hour working with the Yoda team, just as design coaches. And it was a chance for us to first just workshop, see where they were within their process of their project, and also answer any questions from anything that was covered. Them having a couple of moments to actually simmer in the information we gave them, it was a great time to really break down any extra information, go back and also just give them feedback on where they were as a team. And the image depicted here just shows the storytelling best practices workshop that we did, which they obviously did a great job of today, giving them a chance to sit and figure out what types of practices they can use to best showcase their project that they did. And then we'd also spend time just reviewing what the next design steps would be, going back if we needed to over anything, and also just reviewing deadlines so we could all stay on calendar and on the same page.
So these slides are pulled from their crit presentations. And the crits were where the Yoda team shared their progress. They showed their work and showed the work that they'd done so far, as well as get feedback on their project direction. This first image on the left is from the synthesis and reframe crit and goes over the research that they conducted. The second image on the right is from the ideate and prototyping crit, and it contains their updated how can we statement from the previous crit. And the Yoda team were able to refine their how can we statement to be how can we empower youth counselors to utilize mental health resources to support the social and emotional well-being of the youth at the YMCA. Pass it on to Kate.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so we also wanted to walk through some key learning moments and highlights for us this summer. It was a really enriching learning process for speaking for myself as a design coach. There were a lot of incredible moments where I think we all learned a lot through the process and working with one another. So we wanted to share just a few of those key highlights and things we were especially impressed with the Yoda team. Yeah, so a first highlight that came to mind, the design coaches did a group ideation activity on the main highlights from the summer, and we were all really aligned on the fact that this team was incredible at research and was very thoughtful and intentional about the ways that they approached it. And it's very much reflected in their final idea that hopefully will be implemented and thought about at the YMCA. So just their care and investment throughout the research process was extremely evident. They continued the research process throughout the entire summer, which really showed their investment in looking at questions related to mental health and not assuming anything, and consistently challenging previous assumptions that had emerged from their research. So it was clear they had a very iterative and thoughtful research process. Something else I wanted to shout out was the ways that they built off past YMCA resources. This was mentioned before in the presentation, but I think this team did a really incredible job of looking at the culture of the YMCA, existing mental health resources, like those developed by Sarah Johnson. You can see an example on the right. The Think, Act, Feel diagram to describe mental health was pulled from a presentation by Sarah Johnson. So I really commend this team for their ability to build a solution and a prototype that was directly informed by what the YMCA is currently doing and what would work within a context. And then finally, just amazing job, team, of considering different angles and questions. Sarkute, you mentioned intersectionality and its impacts on mental health, and I think that's just a really incredible and important insight, especially as your prototype is implemented in the future.
Another highlight that we noticed as design coaches was just Yoda's ability to collect a lot of information and dedicate it into storytelling that would motivate not only them, but also the other people who were listening. And that first was just recognizing their ability to value both like the quality and the quantity of their information that they were sharing, and being able to build context behind mental health, which really informed their ending project. Also their ability to clearly communicate their findings in their prototype. And so seeking out, a universal definition for mental health, but also giving us a tangible example through Bob and Kate's perspective was really helpful for us to understand how they got there as a team. And finally, their storytelling skills were foreshadowed early on in the program. We had a design sprint activity, and it was using the escape room activity. And they were very, very invested in the details with creating this virtual escape room where the planet was going to implode in 30 minutes. So they had to figure out how to work together as a team to solve that problem.
Finding what works. This is a screenshot of just a snippet of the work that they've done and how they organized it. But the team had their own system of communicating information, and seeing their reliance on Google Docs and their ability to remain organized was a high-level indicator of their behind-the-scenes teamwork and time they were putting into accomplish clear goals. Now, and the final portion is, how can we better engage youth change makers? And so the design coaches, and I'll pass it on to Kate.
Awesome, yeah. So as Junhee mentioned, there were a lot of insights that came for us as design coaches in terms of teaching the design process, facilitating the uptake of design-related tools with this team, who were very quick learners. And something we really focused on was the ways that this team was great at learning through doing. And we realized through their reflection activities and just going through presentations on the design process that anytime this team was given an opportunity to just try something out, as you can see on the right, this was an ideation activity during the first week's design sprint. The team had a ton of ideas already, and as was previously mentioned by the design coaches, it led to the development of the escape room concept. So anytime they had a chance to try out the design tools, we just saw these incredible products they were producing. And so I think as design coaches, it really highlighted for us the importance of giving opportunities to test and learn through doing, rather than just having a lecture heavy format or learning the design process through just hearing about it.
Another reflective point for how better to engage with the youth leaders that we noticed was using activities outside of the project to better understand the team and their interests. And so we usually use icebreakers or also random Slack channels to kind of just gauge what other things are going on in people's minds throughout the day. We had a conversation once about Hogwarts houses and who belonged where, and also if you'd be a neurosurgeon or cardiothoracic, just a chance to really use other activities to kind of get a sense of the team and better understand how we can support them within their project was our goal. Yeah.
And finally, refinement through feedback. From their feedback, we started trying to make our workshops less lecture heavy and more dynamic and interactive. This resulted in more space for group questions, more hands-on activities, and some interesting points to talk through during group YMCA discussions. As much as we were able to utilize their feedback, they were also open and able to accept feedback, which in turn helped them to fine-tune their project. Now I'll pass it on to the YMCA team to speak on their experiences real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start real quick. I know we kind of were touching on this earlier in terms of research and ideation and just different highlights that we took away. But for me, I think one of the most impactful activities, as I think many of you mentioned, was the storyboarding one, where we all designed the virtual escape room. That was very early on in our design sprint. And that laid the groundwork for what our project would look like and how we have to approach projects in terms of ideation and how we kind of go about really building the story, really understanding the stakeholders in every situation. But also it was just a great way to work and get to know one another on our team, because that was like the first time we really worked on something like tangible together. And we were on this call and we were trying to figure out like, how do we make everything work, and how should we split this up, and how should we make this like cool and fun. So that was like a really nice experience to have earlier on, so that we could all kind of get to know each other. So yeah.
Oh, sorry. I would say, like, for me, I think the crits were really impactful and helpful. I think it actually like sort of laid the groundwork to get us to the presentation that we were able to present today. So I think just really being able to get like that direct feedback and being able to ask individual questions and just work on ideation, collaboration, just going back to the drawing board and working on ideas was really helpful. And I speak on behalf of all of my team when we say we really appreciate all the help and the advice that we've been given from the DFA team this entire summer.
I think for me, the most memorable activity, or like was probably the one. I think it was like one of the first activities we did, and it was when Jane and I first started our being partner streak, and I think it was Jane, Alden, and I, and we came up with this story about Wasabi the dog, like this girl on roller skates who found a magical sewing kit and knitted like a sweater for her dog, and her dog turned to Wasabi, and then they like made billions of dollars off of the dog turning into some famous dog. So yeah, it was a great time. It was a great storytelling. We drew it out to the best of our abilities. But that was my most memorable experience because it was so much fun, and I think that one just really set the tone for like the whole summer, and just kind of the fun that it had, that we had. And I know Jane and I ended up being on teams, I swear, every single time her and I would always end up in the same breakout room. And then even though we have our solar power argument, it's okay, we're still pretty good. But yeah, so that first activity was the most memorable.
So like Sir Cute, I really enjoyed our crits. As everyone knows, I'm such a huge crit fan, but also the ideation phase. I really enjoyed the ideation phase, specifically the brainstorming activities. I just found those really helpful. It just encouraged me to come up with ideas and just kind of piggyback off of my other student leaders as well, because it was more focused on quantity and not quality. And I've kind of been taught the reverse when it comes to ideas, that quality is better. So that really helped me. And I think I loved that the most. So
Okay, great. Thank you so much to both our design coaches and the YMCA team for sharing your experience. I know that I'm very proud of all the learning and so excited to see this idea come out and see what comes of it. So definitely looking forward to the future of that. I think for the sake of time, I'll pass it on to Molly with Bank of America to kind of speak a little bit about the impact of this work at their organization.
Hey everybody. I can't believe it's the end of the summer. Kate and I started talking about this in January, and now it's August and the program is done. I don't know how that happened. I don't know where the summer went. I don't know where the 8 weeks went either, but for some of the DFA folks, Bank of America has actually partnered with the YMCA with the Student Leader Program since 2016 when it came to the Triangle Market. So it's been a long partnership in the making, and we've partnered with Kate as well as Yo from the beginning. So it's definitely been an experience, and every year is different. And I think this one is definitely unique amongst everything, the virtual environment that, yes, the student leaders from last year had, but getting to have the Design for America folks involved has been huge. And each year the students have the opportunity to work on a project, and each time it's a little bit different, just based on what's relevant at the time. And they had multiple topics to choose from, as they shared, and mental health is really key right now. So I'm proud of them for figuring it out. And when we started this summer, it's like boiling the ocean, trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do in mental health? It's such an animal right now. And it was exciting to see the presentation and have it go from, a big idea to an actionable idea. And that's one of the things that the program really tries to explain to the students through the summer, is to serve, inspire, and change, which, if there's anything that their presentation did today, it was to serve, inspire, and change our community. And they had the opportunity in the middle of the summer to attend our Bank of America Student Leader Summit, which is all the student leaders from across the country, which is over 300 high school students, juniors and seniors, when they applied, get together and have some very powerful conversations about key topics within our community and how they're being addressed, and getting experiences across the country. But getting to see them bring some of that knowledge back to their project has been interesting, and getting them to have interactions with nonprofit partners that we've worked with for years, and them sharing their mental health experience, and then their mentors that were Bank of America employees based in the Triangle, and getting to have that personal connection with someone that works at the bank, and understand that, we're not all bankers. Like myself, I may work at a bank, but I'm not a banker. And the impact that the bank really wants and understands that if you're going to make true change in your community, you have to bring the government, you have to bring businesses, and you have to bring the nonprofit sector. You have to bring everyone to the table if you're really going to make change in your community. And I think their ability to understand who they were trying to impact, and then figuring out a way that it is actual, tangible, and scalable. That's amazing that you can make something in 8 weeks that is, can be replicated and used, and is so insightful. I don't even know where to start. You've all touched on it, but it's truly something that will make a difference. And I look forward to seeing as what y'all created gets implemented, and the impact it's going to make, because as y'all have said in the presentation, it's the little steps that makes such a big difference. And I just feel inspired by y'all, because you truly went through what, adults go through when you think about going through a project, and y'all went through all the steps. And now you have this amazing experience that gives you the opportunity, when you go through another project, or you're dealing with a situation, or you're in the community and you're working with nonprofits in your future endeavors, you can go through the same process. It doesn't have to be formal. You can learn from all the different things you've learned about diversity and inclusion, and the process of project management, and not being afraid to ask questions. They met with the market president with the bank a couple of weeks ago. She said, they got some tough questions. I said, yeah, they're intelligent. They know who they're going to take full advantage of talking to some key leaders in our market. So they were not afraid to ask questions, because that's how you learn. So I just want to say how proud I am of y'all, and thank you for the impact you're going to make in our community. And thanks for just being amazing and letting me be on this journey with you. And thank you to the Y and Design for America and the partnership we've built. And look forward to seeing what the future holds. I could go on, but I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Molly. And thank you to everyone who's helped us get this far. Bank of America, the team, DFA, and everyone who's provided feedback, and just overall wisdom to help us get here. Before we close out and dismiss, I think we're gonna be taking a team photo or a group photo, and so Ross is gonna help us with that.
Oh my goodness, this is my favorite part of every project and every expo, if you haven't met me yet. So if you have the capability, we invite you to turn your backgrounds on, your photos on. No worries if that's not in the cards right now. But we want to just say thank you so much again for everybody. And we're going to take 2 photos, one serious, one kind of fun. And we're going to say Yoda on 3. So 1, 2, 3, Yoda, strike a pose. We'll take a screenshot in the recording, so there's not going to be a click right now. But we're just going to pose and vogue for a few moments to get ready. So everyone will just channel, get ready. We'll do serious first, and then fun Yoda team celebration as second. So shake it out, get ready. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, Yoda. Scene. Okay, great. That was wonderful, Jane. Yep. Get ready next time. We have notes. Sparkle will do some hands. I'm kidding. You guys are great. And then jumping into this next one on the count of 3, fun one. It's the end of the summer. You did the expo. Congratulations. Channel that energy. Everyone cheer on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yoda. Woo! Congratulations so much to this hard-working team for inspiring us to take care of our mental health and for planting the seeds and laying the groundwork for the YMCA to help young people across the country do the same. So that concludes the expo portion. The DFA team and the Yoda team are going to stay for a little bit. We're going to take a